Hi, and welcome to the Selected Tech podcast, brought to you by a group of 4 MVPs doing webinars, sessions, and interviews on all things SharePoint, Office 365, and the Microsoft AI ecosystem. Their motto is learn, share, reuse. And here they are, Albert Jan, Rick, Stefan, and Thomy.
Good evening, good morning, good day, depending on where you are on this lovely planet. Welcome to another episode of Selected Tech. And today it's my turn, and we will talk about the latest feature set or the latest project updates in Teams FX for .NET, so for Blazor. And we will explore the version that was published on the 3rd of November last year. And we will try to extend what the scaffolded project already allows us to do, and to give you some ideas what you can achieve with that latest update and the latest library update in that area. So to get started, I still need to open up Visual Studio 2019. The team actually is currently working on making the extension also available in Visual Studio 2022. You can already start with a solution from scratch, like a Blazor server application, and then use the NuGet packages from the latest version. But there isn't, as you will see it in a couple of seconds, the latest project template is not available yet. It takes a couple of more weeks for that to be available. And be aware that everything you will see today is still in preview. So of course there are some rough edges, and we will point those out. But overall, if you compare this version to where we started somewhere around April or May last year, you see a lot of improvement in a couple of areas. So let's get this started. Let's call that Teams Toolkit Selected Tech. It's 2022 01, but it's still January. And create a new project. So I typed in the wrong field. Nice. I'm clicking on Microsoft Teams app here, because this is already the project template that's available on my machine. And now I need to get the name here. 2201, file is okay. And let's create that. And this is already a difference compared to older or previous versions. So you see that I can go for a tab or a bot here. So I'm, of course, eager to know everything. And I click on both of those checkboxes. And I'm clicking here to select my dev account. So that's also a new thing. I think Rick had some experience with the older version with an auto select of a certain account. So that's also an improvement. You can select your account here. And this account is very, very important, because you need to have Azure and Teams admin permissions with that account on your tenant. So go and create an Microsoft 365 developer tenant, and then you're good. It most probably won't work with your domain account in your home tenant, because hopefully no one really, no real developer has access to their home tenant Azure with their logged in Windows credentials. So that's a little bit of a security test maybe, or it's just different in terms of cloud computing and what account should access what. But let's create that here.
That's the account who should have global admin rights, right? For creating the Azure AD app, right?
I don't think it needs to be global admin, but you need to be able to create an Azure AD registration, and you need to create need to be able to create a Teams app definition in the Teams developer portal. If you use a developer account from the developer program, you get a global admin permission, but I think you can succeed with just those singular permissions as well.
Yeah, there's a app developer role or something in Azure, I guess, and then you can create app registration. And then for Teams, you have to be an admin probably.
Yeah. So the project template played out nicely, and we see here all the files that it generated, and it opens up this getting started text file that tells us what to do and where to start. a short tip. If you click down there and then Teams FX, you already see what happened in the background already. Without doing anything, just by creating the project, it already created 2 Azure AD applications, one for the bot and one for the Teams tab, and Microsoft Teams application in the tenant. So that happened already in the background. That's why it took a couple of seconds to spin up and to load, because it already communicated with your tenants and created endpoints in there. We can discuss back and forth if that's a smart move to just create that, and there was no indication, no information in the wizard. That's why I really don't like that approach. I would love to have this as an option to auto create, or have a menu in here to recreate that on my own. But maybe later in time we will be there. If you're missing the project template, one more time, you need to go to extension, manage your extension, and install this one, the Teams Toolkit, the preview one. If you go in there and create this extension, I think you need to install it, reopen Visual Studio, and from there you will also have this project template available, and you're good to go. And the really cool, sorry,
for the app, what's considered best practice? Would you create one separate like they do now, one separate for the tab and one for the bot, or just one app who can do both? Because I'm not sure. I'm just thinking about, so in your dev tenant it doesn't matter, but let's say you go to production. What's the easiest to manage?
The easiest to manage, of course, is just one ID, but I think I can think of scenarios where you might need 2 if you have different permissions. So if, for example, the tab that you're hosting needs a different set of permission, but your bot also needs to call another endpoint that your tab doesn't call. So that can be an option to go with both, but depends on your use case.
I think it's a bit of a consultancy answer, right? It depends on the scenario. If you're building software, then it might make more sense to have a single registration that contains everything. So you're like a SaaS vendor and you want to have the single registration. If you're building tooling, like Thomas says, where your chatbot does not have any permissions or just like only read your profile and the tab should be able to do, I don't know, maybe even application permissions, then, well, potentially you want to have 2 different sets.
I'm just thinking about explaining it to a system engineer that I need to, and he will hate me for it because it will be more work.
That's true. But I can argue both cases, and it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. So maybe more on the security part, it's a little bit tricky, and I think there isn't a silver bullet or one answer that fits all. It of course, if you need a lot of time, effort, or service tickets to get one created, it may be easier to just create one and then grant it the permissions that you want. But depends a little bit on your environment.
True,
But talking about the environment, we didn't create anything yet. We just created or scaffolded out that project. Didn't click on any configuration, just showed you that it already did something in the background, and immediately I'm going press play button, and I'm just prepping on the side my password manager, because I will be asked my password for that account shortly, and I have no idea what that is. No thanks. So it opened up the browser, logged into my Teams tenant, or that tenant of Teams that my account is registered to, that I picked earlier to start with. And then here we are. We're already on the screen for installing the application. I click on Add. And there is a tab, there's a bot, there are a couple of things. We are now focusing the tab, and maybe just looking a little bit at the bot side, but if I click on personal tab here, takes a couple of seconds. You see there in the background that my local host now is busy creating ASP.NET components. And here we are. The CSS looks a little bit odd for this one, but okay. Should be in the middle and center stage. Let's see what's the problem there. But you already have your application running here. You see there is this couple of different tabs actually in there, and it shows you front-end code is in program CS. Interesting, and it's the entry point, of course. Get the current user, and then I can go in there and say authorize. And then you see that, okay, it pops up with the consent screen of our application, because it creates, as I told you, an Azure AD application with the name of the project. That's something that I might want to change, because what's the name of my solution maybe shouldn't be the exact same name in Azure AD. So that's one thing, but it's not consented yet. I'm doing that because I have the permissions to do so. And okay, there's something off with images, because also this image should be smaller like this. So and this also. So let's see what's wrong with that in a second. But you see my name and my email address here. So in this profile card, and already running in Teams, everything's set up just by pressing F5, which actually is already a cool thing, because it didn't take long to get up to speed in Teams and get running, and you can focus on your code now, and the environment basically is up and running. And remind yourself it's still a preview, so it might be somehow okayish that it created that all automatically, but it's important to realize that you need to have the proper permissions, because if you don't have the permissions, the scaffolding of the project already fails, and you have no idea what went on in the background. So to look into the details of this solution, let's start with a page, and this is our tab. So actually, this is the tab page that gets loaded in our Teams definition. Where is that? There should be somewhere. Properties is our manifest here. You see, this is the Teams manifest file that basically gets created, and then on top of that, they create an application in your Teams Developer Center, and then you see website URL, all those things, and there must be a bot. Here we are, and configurable tab with config, and a static tab with /tab, and that's how those things are connected. So there is /tab, and that's basically created. And you see here it's HTTPS localhost, so it's running on my local machine. That's fine for the getting started, but that's how the things connect on this side. So Teams gets this manifest file, and then it basically loads this Blazor server application.
So wait a second. If they're already referring to the bot, then in Azure for the bot, there's not only an Azure AD app registration, but it needs also to be a Azure bot service.
I think so. We will.
Yeah, they probably create one.
So
we can check that out in a couple of seconds.
You don't need to only have the app dev permissions. You need to have at least contributor access to a subscription to be able to create a new project. Because otherwise,
or a subscription at the least. Because I also have that experience with certain customers; they don't have Azure or no subscription.
If you just have an M365 developer tenant and you don't have the Azure portion, you still have Azure AD, but you won't be able to succeed here because there's no Azure subscription and no Azure bot, and therefore you can't run the bot.
And you only get like 3 months free of something, no? So you can create a free Azure account for like $100 or
with a credit card,
Yeah, you'll always need a credit card.
So the
So
app
this
reg
is my
should
this is
be
my
fine.
this is a free tenant. This is not something special. I think it's just a regular Microsoft 365 tenant, and for sure there's no credit card or something in there.
Yeah, you can. The new bot services without a web app these days, no?
Let's check that for a second.
Yeah, there is a web app behind it, but
that's already this created on. So it's this
that's
toolkit. That one should be the tab, and that should be the bot.
Yeah, but that's just the Azure AD app registration. But what you need as well is the new service, which was called BotGen registration back then, and now it's called Azure Bot, to be able to connect to Teams.
There's no subscription.
Because
there's no subscription in it. All resources or something.
Where can I find that? Or where would you expect that? A little bit lost now.
Just go under all resources or something.
Yeah, all resources doesn't matter. Just check.
No.
Check where your resources are. Okay, that's interesting. Because how does Teams connect to your bot?
I didn't play with the bot yet. I'm only focused on the bot on the Tabsify.
Yeah, there should be a link between the ID and the URL.
We can check those quick start things because it's mentioning the bot here. It's if the project contains bot capabilities before debugging, select project TeamsFX start ngrok for bot menu.
Yeah,
so it connects to ngrok.
When prompted, sign in the account you selected when you create the project. After press, I can.
That's interesting. Let's try it out because
start ngrok for
I
bot.
assume it won't work because there's no Azure bot, so there's no glue between Teams and
I have no idea.
You as the user of the bot. Because that's why I was asking.
But you see here, successfully updated ngrok endpoint in Developer Center.
Yeah, but which
developers?
Teams Microsoft.com. Let's check there. What else is it saying? It says registered bot name toolkit bot in Developer Center. That's the Teams part. But that's not what you mentioned, Stefan. That's not the Azure part.
Yeah.
There's a bot ID, there's a Teams ID.
It would surprise me if you wouldn't need the Azure portion because then they're doing their own thing.
This is running, okay.
ngrok is running, so let's press F5.
And say hello.
Yeah. And you have a bot here, and say welcome. And at least
it does redirect, so it redirects. So somewhere there should be a link between this ID has to go to that URL.
Okay, but then they're hosting the Azure bot service for you, so that's then really awkward because then they're hosting your stuff somewhere hidden.
I have no idea.
Yeah, because if you now need to go to production, oh my god, then you need to create your own Azure. What was it? /bots or something? It was a dev.teams.microsoft.com/bots.
Yeah, it was a hidden portal in there.
Yeah.
dev.teams.microsoft.com/bots, not /apps.
You still cannot sort this thing here. That's and it's still this. Is it loading now?
Details.
There is my. It's. It's so cool. It's not there yet.
But browse to /bots instead of /apps. Let's see if that's in there.
Yeah. But it's got to be in Azure, no?
Yeah, but if there's no subscription, where is it?
Tools. It's under tools. Okay, bot management. You got all your bots. Okay.
There we are on selected tech 2. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. And how do you
So
change
what
now?
can you do
Let's say your ng rock reboots, so you need to, or you want to manually change it.
Yeah, or
delete?
you want to update the OAuth connection
Yeah.
string, or you want to update the image, or you want to update the display name of the bot.
Yeah,
Where
I
did
know
it
what
go?
I know what I'm doing. I'm pinging Stefan.
Yeah, you can't even read out the metrics because you don't have access to the metrics, so you don't know
Go
how
back.
many users are using the bot.
Go back to Azure. Click on. Oh, it has to be there. Click on all resources or something. No. No, like all these. It's still empty. It cannot be. How can they?
I didn't do anything with that tenant yet, so there is just I
Okay,
only used a couple of app registrations, so there I don't think there is anything in there.
That's really bizarre.
Yeah, it's
Because
awkward.
how do you manage it? You don't.
Yeah, if you want to start developing, okay, you hit F5
Yeah,
and you're good to
yeah.
go. But after
That-
after 2 days, or if the project becomes a little bit bigger, let's say I want to share it with somebody else, or we want to do.
So we
let's work with the two of us to add an app or on a bot. It's not gonna work.
No.
So you would expect it here, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, what is I don't know if it's still the case, but I think so. What's already struck us, Stefan, the last time we looked at it, it's an activity handler. It's not a Teams bot.
Teams handler.
Maybe that's already something that on purpose, so that it's this. And the bot thing is, in all fairness, let's go back to the GitHub repo. It still says down there. No, I need to go to packages.net SDK, and there yada yada yada, and then it says bot will be supported in the future. So it's still something that might not be figured out yet in the final phase what they're doing. But interesting.
V0.1.
Yeah, it's probably not. That's why it's still in preview, probably.
That's all fair, but now just imagine you have 10 developers and they do that 100 times. Then you have 100 times 10 bots running somewhere you can't manage.
True.
Which is a bit.
Which
risky,
means we should create a GitHub issue and ask what the.
Yeah. It would be at least good to know where it is or how to manage it, or.
So because if you now stop it and you start it again, and ngrok provides you with a new URL, then it gets auto updated by some secret API somewhere.
Isn't that part of the thing you clicked earlier? Project start ngrok, or what was it?
I think that would be probably the. I stopped now. Or I stopped the debugging. There's still ngrok running, but I think that would be the start ngrok thingy, right? So every time if I stop now ngrok, I don't open up ngrok. I'm clicking on this button, so it always, I think, will create those things for me.
Yeah, but if you look at the app settings.json, that's where all the settings for Teams FX are in, or at least from what I understood. But there's no, other than having the bot ID in here, there's no other information.
Nope, there's no.
So like Stefan said, probably there is this API endpoint that gets called saying, okay, this is the bot ID that you need to update, and it gets your ngrok status and then combines those together.
Yeah,
because is the bot app registration for the bot, is it a multi-tenant app?
Oh, that's something we could check.
That's something we could easily check. App registrations. Thank you, Azure, for making it selectable.
All Microsoft account users.
users. So how to do a single tenant app? because usually what you would like to do is to do a single tenant app.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
this single
Need
tenant,
one.
multi-tenant thingy wasn't their strong suit yet. Also, so because in
Yeah.
the Teams FX part, it also somewhere hard coded to go to your tenant ID and not do the common endpoint. So there's still, my best case is that they still figure out stuff and what this should be in the end of the day. Let's see. But it's fascinating that it already works, and a little bit
It's scary that it already works.
that it works without you need to go to the proper Azure paints. That's true.
From a development perspective, it is nice that it's all in place, and without
that they're hosting it for you.
Azure authentication, you can just say, okay, click, oh, it's working. Now I can start thinking about building my tab or bot.
Yeah, but it hides away a couple of things that you will need to think about, and if you hit production for the first time.
True,
so
but that's for the architects and the infrastructure people, not for the developer building.
Yeah, but if you
even for a dev,
30 days on this, even for a dev, if you spend 30 days on this, and
SSO
then
SSO will not work.
True.
Because you need to add the OAuth connection setting.
I'm just trying to look at it from the bright side, guys. Come on.
I
am. If somebody says, "Oh, this is really cool. Can you push it to production today?" It's going to be a long day.
Then let's cut that back to the Razor part and not the bot part.
Okay.
But good input. I didn't really try the bot yet. I was more focusing on that fella here, because it's also very interesting what they created here, because this is your tab page, and they just have one Razor component, which is from some point understandable. So you could technically reuse this component in any other solution or project. But what I'm finding a little bit funny is that it's not only just one component. If I click on welcome, then I have a couple of more components. So the graph thingy is also a component in here. And this is a little bit weird, because if I start that, or at least I would make the distinction between what's a component and what's not in that page. Just by looking at the page, I would not guess that this is basically, let's go over here, that basically this is one component, and then this is another one. It's a little bit weird, but okay, because you see here they're using Fluent tabs, because they're using a Blazor Fluent UI. And those Fluent tabs basically are those 1, 2, 3 up there. And then we have this Fluent tab panel where you say, okay, we have the edit code part, which is this one here. Then we have the current user part. This is get the current user in here. And then we have the graph part in here. And calling a component just graph is a little bit, the naming could be better or clearer in order to what to understand, but it's narrowed down. So this is I think what they wanted to achieve is that they only have a couple of lines here and don't overcomplicate things, because, for example, if I click now in the edit code component, it's just this div here. And this doesn't need to be our own component. This 7-line could be in there as well, and it wouldn't hurt. But it's, on the other hand, it shows you how to create components and how to stack things together. I can argue this back and forth.
It's a pretty clear view if you go there. Okay, you got just like 10, 12 components. That's what you need to show, and then every component itself is the HTML. So.
It's. I think it's more like the idea what you can achieve if you have a proper bigger app and componentize this down. That's true. Interesting part on the welcome Razor, we are seeing how authentication is handled actually. So we see a client ID, we see an authentication request, and this authentication basically also uses a TeamsFX configuration and TeamsFX authentication configuration, and then it's calling something that's named TeamsFX. And yeah, there is still a lot of naming conventions to be fixed, I guess. And what I'm seeing from the latest NuGet package, that code already is obsolete, and they managed to strip that down to a single line. But you see, this is like the iteration one before, so you still need to do a couple of lines in here. But if you set this up, this component actually doesn't call the graph. But let's look at that graph component. You see in here, we're getting a token, and then we get a graph service client. And with this graph service client, then we are back to basic business because this is a regular graph service client. Where is it? This is a normal graph.NET SDK object. It's nothing Teams related or Teams specific. It's just your graph endpoint, and then you go out and grab something. For the last part, I wanted to add something in here to make our own graph call in here as well. And let's say we are on this card here again. If I would click authorize, then my profile card would pop up, and we want to add the count of teams that I am a member of. A very simple request. Let me just open on another screen the prepared code so that I don't miss anything.
The only thing there is that if you, depends on what you do, but you potentially would require additional permissions in your app registration, right?
You're taking away one of my main points of the next demo. Thank you for that. But yeah, of course, you would need to do that. And that's one thing why I want to do that. So to make sure that we know what's going on. But if you look at the component, it just set my display name, mail, office location, and my picture in here. And I want to add this simple counter in here with a Fluent badge, and basically it says team count, and team count is something that we aren't using yet, so I need to add this as a parameter as well. And that's how those Razor components interact with each other. The graph component actually calls the graph, and then it hands over or sends in as a parameter the different parts, and this profile card component really just visualizes stuff. So if we go back to the graph here, and I'm doing the same on my templating here, and what we want to create basically is that we go down there when we call the graph and make our own call in here. So we are just calling join teams and do a await graph me join teams, and of course it will fail because I'm not consenting yet the correct permissions. I just need to also add this variable up here. And I also, because I changed this component, I added a parameter there, so I can add that also here. So very simple. Come on. Yep, that's correct. And of course, and actually, and that's why I'm not going in there and fixing the auth issue right away, because I want to show how to get around the exception and to get the idea. So I'm stopping the application and restarting it. And off we go. So as API told us already, we are expecting to get an error in here. Add this. I'm not interested in the tab. Going from my, or the bot, I'm going from my tab. the picture is still weird. Let's see if this actually works. So you see, I get an unhandled exception. So, okay, see the browser dev tools for details. Let's open the browser dev tools. And if I move that over a little bit, then you see a lot of stuff from Teams. And then you see some errors. Yeah, and actually, the interesting one is down there. So it's from our Blazor server JavaScript. And it says something like, okay, there was an unhandled exception in the current circuit. So this circuit will be terminated. For more details, turn on detailed exceptions by setting detailed errors true in your app setting JSON. And that's the good thing. And that's why I wanted to run into this error and exception, because if you see that exception text in here, really take that as a good tip, because you will see app settings, development. No. There we are. And then we rerun it. And again, you could mess around with the startup location of your project, not pointing to the installation screen, already pointing to your tab, so you can skip over this step also already. But that's somewhere on my blog, and Api pointed out that my blog is down, so don't Google it right now. But if I click authorize now, we expect to again hit an exception, of course, because we didn't change anything on the bug level. But you see that you get a proper exception text here, and with that, of course, as you said, missing scope permissions on the request. So I need at least Team Basic all to be up and running. How do I do that? I'm opening up again my Azure portal, Azure Active Directory, app registrations, sort to get the latest one, and API permissions, adding a permission, Microsoft Graph, delegate, and it's Teams, not team dot. Read basic all, add permission, and that's just for getting basically the Teams count or this joint Teams command working. And then we need to go back to Visual Studio and restart. I expect now that we would run into an UI glitch, because with this weird format of the picture, maybe because I don't remember that we saw the office location down there earlier. So let's see that in a second. Authorize. Yeah, there you see it. Member of 6 teams. So okay. that's what we added basically, and I think that's a cool. It's not a very cool demo, but it opens up the idea of okay, how to easily extend the authentication part and what you get already from the scaffolder project to add your own stuff, to really create on top of that, and to take it away and add stuff on your own. What they actually already did is that they updated a lot of the interop stuff, because if you remember it, a couple of months ago we talked about okay, there is this JavaScript file that they basically need to call, and they are hiding it away now really nicely, because you see that there's this base class that basically imports the module and works with the module, and then you just get, like, for example, a Teams context, something that we always wanted is now as a file in there, and you just can call it, because up there in the root folder there is a site.js that keeps a couple of JavaScript files of JavaScript functionality, and there's another one with this Teams Blazor interop JavaScript. That's basically what's working under the hood. So the interop between .NET and JavaScript, because everything we do with Teams happens through the JavaScript SDK, and to get the context in .NET, there needs to be this JavaScript function that gets called basically by our library, and we in .NET just can say, okay, get me the context. So that's a good iteration and a good step forward. And there is a couple of things that you would need. So register change set handlers for really creating or updating this, where is it? Pages tab config, so that you can really use C# to get the settings. So if you create a configurable tab, you change something, and then it stores that back. So there's a lot of helpers or interesting code fragments in there to get you started. Most probably you would get rid of this demo UI and start from there. And from the time being, I would think that if we look at the NuGet packages, and remember this is just the version from November, because you see that where is it? Updates. There is this where is it? Microsoft Teams FX, and there's already a version. We are using now 0.1, and there's already 0.3. And the only reason why I should not maybe click update in here is because we are using this scaffolded project. So if you start with a plain Blazor project, you already can use Teams FX in the latest version. And I would suggest if you really want to achieve something that stands out from the demo and or really goes into deeper stuff, I would create a regular Blazor application and then make it Teams aware with updating this or installing this NuGet package. And I would open up this demo scaffolding project just to look up stuff, how they implemented it, and then take it from there. But it's a nice blueprint or getting started thingy where you can start working with. Yep, that's it.
Cool scenario.
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
There is some interesting stuff in there. There is also some room for improvement.
Yep. Yeah, they're not.
As always.
There's always room for improvement, and I'm sure they're also seeing it that they're not really finished with it because it's still a 0-point version. But yeah, you can see that it's way more sophisticated than it used to be, let's say, in the summer timeframe. So
Cool.
hopefully we will see further improvements.
Cool.
Yeah, looks good.
Thanks for
Perfect.
showing us the cool stuff.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
Then up till next time.
See ya.
Yep.
Bye.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.